When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Good morning, everybody out there in Join Up Dots land. Good morning and welcome to episode 132 of the rocking and rolling motivational show that you've all come to love. And to be honest, I love it more than anyone. And I hope that comes across on the mic, because how could you not love it when you get guys like I've got today on the show? And at the end of each show, you'll hear me say the words, please come back again when you have more dots to join up, as I believe that by joining up those dots and connecting our pasts, it's the best way to build our futures. Well, today's guest is doing just that, as they previously appeared way back in the first week of Join Up Dots, episode 7 to be precise. He is a man who honestly inspires me daily by his positive outlook, ability to overcome huge challenges, and his desire to have an amazing life. As you will hear in today's episode, it's really the kind of life that we could all have if we're only brave enough, make good financial decisions, and I suppose want it bad enough. Now, several years ago, he was treading the same path that the majority of us have trod over the years, working long hours at the expense of seeing his children and family, striving to build a business that ultimately didn't fulfil him, and banishing the dreams that he had to be a writer. He struggled on and on, and finally, with a debt of over 100,000, overweight, overstressed, and deeply unhappy, he came to a crossroads in his life. He knew that he had to change direction and claim a life of his own. And that is where we left him at the end of episode 7. I feel like saying, and that is where we left our hero. So if you want to feel the full force of his story, stop listening now and jump to the beginning. Go back to episode 7, and don't worry, we'll wait for you to get back. But if you are already inspired by what you've already heard, let's continue as we bring onto the show once more to join up more dots, the one, the only, Mr Kimanzi Constable. How are you, Kimanzi?
David, thanks for having me. I'm also probably the only guest that's wearing a sweatband right now. And being in the first 7, I kind of feel like a superhero.
Well, you should be. Are you just wearing a sweatband and nothing else, Kimanzi? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
What's the next question?
And where is the sweatband? No, we're not going to ask those kind of questions. But you have, you're in Hawaii, and you've done something quite astonishing. And when we were talking just before recording, I said, what? You've really done this? You've been asleep and you've set your alarm for 2 o'clock in the morning to get up and talk to this slightly deranged bloke from the United Kingdom.
Well, yeah, I have to do it because it's you and it's the show. But then, to be fair, I normally wake up at about 3 a.m. anyways to go run 10 miles.
So why at 3 a.m.? Because surely, on a life like yours, and I don't know, I feel like I know you very well, and we connect on Facebook, and it's funny when you get into this virtual world that you will actually say, oh, my great friend Kimanzi Constable. But we've never met. We've only had these conversations, and we kind of send emails and we respond. But there is a kind of support there from both sides. But with your life, it's like you can structure it to be whatever you want. So why the hell are you getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to run 10 miles? Is it because of the weather? Is it too hot later on in the day? Or is it the fact that you just like doing it at 3 o'clock in the morning?
I think it's a couple of things. It's nice to get up and run while it's dark out and it's cool out and nobody else is out and it's all quiet and calm. I could get out there, collect my thoughts, think. It doesn't ever really get too hot here in Hawaii. It normally hovers around 85 degrees, so it's never bad at all as far as the heat. But then I guess the biggest thing is probably because I delivered, for those of you that have listened to episode 7, I delivered bread for 12 years. And when I did that, I was normally getting up between 11 o'clock at night and midnight every night for 12 years. So I guess that early rising is just still kind of ingrained in me. And sometimes I find myself just waking up when I don't want to wake up. So 3 is a nice compromise. I can get out there and run. And then with the time difference here between Hawaiian Standard Time and Central Eastern Time, we're about 5 and 6 hours behind those time zones. I have coaching clients. I have a lot of coaching clients. And so I'm normally getting up and starting to coach them around 7, 8 a.m. So I go for my run, I do my coaching, and then I got the rest of the day to do whatever I want to do. So if I want to take a nap or just lay on the couch or go to the beach, that's what I do.
It's perfect, isn't it? When you say it like that, and you used to be in Milwaukee, was it?
Milwaukee, yes.
Oh, you say it differently to me, but yeah, same place. And I suppose getting up and running at 2 o'clock in the morning in Hawaii is, with the greatest respect, a little bit better than running around Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, from the path that I go on, I can see the ocean, I can feel the ocean breezes. It's pretty serene setting.
Do you know what I love about your life? And I said it in the introduction, but you've made brave decisions, but you've made good financial decisions as well. You know, I keep in contact with you on Facebook, and I've seen the car that you've just bought and stuff. But you made a decision to move over to Hawaii because you went on holiday there or vacation, and it was the dream place. And you suddenly thought, why are we keeping this dream place for 2 weeks a year? Why don't we live there? But effectively, you could have at that point gone, no, we can't afford it. It's really expensive to be out there. But you found ways of making it affordable. And that is what these shows are all about. That is about finding ways to have the life that you deserve. And you're doing that, aren't you?
Yeah, we realized my father died last year at the age of 54 suddenly. I think we talked about this last time. But one of the things the last few life lessons that he taught me was that life isn't about stuff and the stuff that you accumulate. It's about your experiences. And he had told me that there were so many things he wished he had done. And so I made a vow to myself, that day at his funeral, that I wasn't going to live life to accumulate stuff and to keep up with the Joneses, as they call it here. I was going to create amazing experiences that I'll never forget and my kids will never forget. So we came here to Hawaii with 15 checked bags. That's all we came with. We sold everything else. As a matter of fact, David, the first time we ever even interviewed was when I was getting ready to make that move.
That's right.
And I was sitting on an airbed in my house because we had sold all of our stuff. That's where I was interviewing with you from. But when we got here, we just made a vow that we're going to live a very, very simple life. It's going to be about the experience and not the stuff. So the good thing about Hawaii is that there's a lot of turnover. So, well, I shouldn't say it's a good thing, but the thing about Hawaii is that there's a lot of turnover. So every weekend you'll see moving off the island sales. So we were able to replenish our whole house conservatively for, I want to say, $1,000. We were able to get all the furniture, the beds, everything you could think of for your house. We were able to get for about $1,000. And then the first 40 days that we lived here, we didn't even own a vehicle. We just took public transportation. We took our bikes. We walked everywhere. But one of our neighbors was moving off the island, and they sold us, they call it here a Maui cruiser. They sold us a Maui cruiser for $300. And she's old, and she's a beast, but she still gets us around. So really, it's not about the stuff at all for us. It's just about being together, being in this amazing place, and really going out there every day and living our lives.
And the beauty about not having stuff but experiences is you don't have to dust experiences, do you? I say this to my wife a lot. She's somebody she's a lot better than she used to be, but she would want stuff, and she would want stuff everywhere. And I used to say to her, if it was just like minimal, we could clean this place in an afternoon. But because you're filling it up with stuff that I've got to pick up and dust and put down and pick up, and it takes forever and a day. So just having that mindset, it makes it easier all the way across, doesn't it?
Yeah, when we moved and we had to sell all of our stuff, we saw stuff that we hadn't even seen for 10 years. And we ended up donating a whole truckload to the Salvation Army, literally one whole truckload of stuff that we've never even touched. And yeah, that day was the day we vowed to stop being hoarders.
It's a criminal thing, though, isn't it? I like this, and I'm actually going to call this title Kimanzi Fights Back Against Stuff or something like that. Because, yes, stuff, you can't actually say why you've got it, but it's just there. And there's so many times we open a cupboard and we sort of look there and we think, okay, what should I wear today? Oh, I'll wear that. And we wear the same maybe 5 or 6 shirts because we like them. And the ones that we get given for Christmas and things like that we didn't really like, but we were too kind to say, just sort of hang there. But they hang there because we're unwilling to sort of throw away the stuff just in case we need them. And they obviously don't need them because your shirts are falling apart and you're still putting the same ones on all the time. Well,
yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, now it's nice to look in that closet and only see a few items. It's nice to look around and to be able to move freely. But then the balance of that, and David's my friend on Facebook, so he sees this, the balance of that is, we're at the beach almost every day. We're out there surfing and swimming and just really enjoying life.
It is. If you are friends with Kimanzi, you will see this life, but you kind of go, I hate him. I really do. This is amazing, this stuff. Yeah, obviously deep down we sort of admire you for everything you do. But it is one of those lives that you kind of think, why not me? And that's the kind of message I want to get across to the listeners. Why not you? If you are living in a job that you don't like, or working in a job, and you're living in a relationship or a house or a setting that you don't like, that doesn't have to be the only setting that you have. And especially if you're a single person, because I understand when you left Kimanzi, you've had kids. And so you're taking your kids away from their friends and stuff. So that must have been difficult for you, but you still took that action. How was it with your kids? Did they go, whoa, yes, Hawaii, this is where we want to be? Or, oh, Dad, no, I want to see all my mates?
They were more excited than disappointed. They miss their friends and miss family, of course, but they adjusted pretty well here. They met friends right away. Within a couple days of all of us coming here, I had all kinds of random neighborhood kids in my house, and I'm like, okay, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? So they made friends quickly, and then they've been homeschooled the last couple years. So this year we decided we're going to put them in public school. We don't want them to be socially awkward. So we put them there, and like they started school a couple days ago. They started a little early here in Hawaii, and the kids are like, they missed school the last couple years. The interactions, the teachers, the lunch in the cafeteria. I mean, the kids have been talking nonstop for 2 days, telling us everything that they've experienced. So they've adjusted here really well, and they actually love life here.
You realise all those neighbours' friends would be going home going, do you realise they've got no furniture, Mum? Do you realise I went in there and they're just sitting on the floor?
We just tell everybody that we're African, because
or
that's
Buddhist
where I'm
or
from.
something. Yeah. You just sort of throw it away. Well, what is it about homeschooling that? Because we don't really have that in the United Kingdom. Our kids go off to school and that's it. And to be honest, we're delighted they go off to school. And when it's like 3 o'clock and you've got to pick them up again, you think, oh my God. But the Americans, I hear this all the time. And the first time I heard it, I thought, really? You teach your kids at home? Because I couldn't teach my kids. I don't think they would listen to me for a start. So is it you or your wife that actually does the homeschooling?
It's kind of neither. We're more of guides. The homeschooling was all done through like a virtual academy online. So it's like taking a college course online. It's the same scenario. You log in, you got your work there. It's all virtual and it's all online. All we really had to do is just log in and look at the grades, and then also make sure they're not slacking on their homework and stuff like that. But it's when I was homeschooled in 10th and 11th grade, and this was back in 1996. It was a little different because my mom actually had to teach me, and we spent a lot of time together those couple of years, and I wasn't her biggest fan. And it was actual lessons, lesson cards, and I hated it. So to see what I had then and what the kids have now, it's vastly different because of the technology.
Ah, you're getting old, Kimanzi. That's the problem. I say to my kids, when I was at school, there wasn't cut and paste. You actually had to go and get a book and actually write it properly. And now they sort of do this homework, and I go, right, what's your homework? Oh, we've got to research the way that the Vikings made bread. And you go, how long's that going to take? Oh, it only take me about 2 minutes, because they Google it and they copy and paste and away they go. But in our days, we'd actually have to go and find a proper Viking and ask him how to do it.
School has changed drastically. I put this on Facebook the other day. The first day of school, kids' first day of school, they were evacuated and went back to school, and the school calls us and says, "No need to be alarmed, parents, but there was a bomb threat at school." I'm like, bomb threat? Like, we never had bomb threats when I went to school. Seriously.
We were making our own bombs in those days.
Yeah.
That's what chemistry was all about. Seeing if you could make things to explode. So let's get onto the nuts and bolts of it, because it is fascinating, your leap of faith over to Hawaii. But is it that dramatic? Was it a leap of faith, or was it something that you just knew it was going to be effortless and you could just make it work? Was there scary parts to the actual adventure?
Oh, yeah, it was scary all the way. Just the fact that it costs so much to live here, the fact that you're selling all your stuff, the fact that you're moving away from family. There was a lot of fear there, a lot of fear. But really, it shouldn't have been that scary of a thing, David, because we knew what we wanted to do. We researched it very well. We researched everything. We could have told you anything about living life here. When we got here, we actually found that some things were a little bit more affordable than we thought. So we had the plan, and then it was just a matter of executing that plan. I mean, we had an emergency fund just in case for those unexpected times. I mean, we had a real solid plan, so it shouldn't have been that scary, but yet it really was. And we let the fear just keep us from here for too long. And then even while we're moving, just dealing with the little issues with fear.
Because that is fascinating to me, because you are somebody that, you know, not over the last couple of years, look further back than that, you have been somebody that's been pushing against normality. You've been pushing against the restraints that we all accept, and you've been creating your own path. So it's fascinating that you still get scared. And even on something that is effectively, you could move over there, you're not going to die. You're not going to be able to not afford to eat. Okay, you may not be able to eat as much as you used to if it was more expensive and all that kind of stuff. But it's not like going to a third world country that might really set you apart. And you were still frightened of doing it.
Absolutely. I think, this is something that I just wrote about last night, actually. So you and I are in sync, unless you were hacked into my computer and you saw what I was writing. You didn't do that, did you?
I've seen those pictures of you just wearing a sweatband and nothing else that you keep on your computer.
So last night...
You've lost a lot of weight, Kimanzi. They look all right, I promise you.
This is true. But I was just thinking about fear last night. And fear has held me back, and it holds so many people back in their lives. And it's usually it's dumb. Let's just be honest. It's dumb. And I even wrote that. I'm like, fear is usually dumb. I was afraid of moving here. I was afraid of becoming a writer. I was afraid that I didn't have the credentials and then I even have a few very dedicated haters. So they love to point out that I'm a self-accredited life expert, and they like to say all that kind of good stuff. But, I listened to that and I just let that feed into my fear. I feared that I'm not good enough to write for a big, large website news organization, which David knows that I'm doing now. And I had so many fears over the years and still. And the reality is that they don't need to be there. And that really life is too short to give into those fears. You can't. You have to do it anyways. You have to go for it. You have to plan, and you just have to keep moving forward.
Well, you do, but the fears are still there. This is, I wish that I had no fears in my head. And if somebody said to me, go into a lion's cage, I would go, no, I'm not going to do it. And they say, why? And I go, I'm scared to be eaten or something. That would be totally acceptable. But something that we do on a daily basis, we can actually plan for it. We can really limit the risk. And it's those fears in the middle of the night, or they just pop into your head. They're not proper, are they? They're not proper fears in any shape or form. But we still respond to them. It's a fascinating problem that we all have as humans.
I totally agree. And usually the worst that could happen, like with situations in life, the worst that could happen is you get rejected. And I think a lot of us fear that rejection. But rejection isn't the end all be all. There's still an opportunity to do that very thing that you face that rejection with.
I remember on the last conversation, you told me that you used to write these huge love letters to people, these huge flowing poems to sort of ex-girlfriends. And That's even quite scary, isn't it? That you write something and you give it to them and they might laugh at you. And that was quite early in the days, but that, looking back on it, was just a way of accepting that you was a good writer and moving you on to the next bit. What I'm trying to say really is everything that we do is just overcoming something that isn't comfortable at the time, that leads us to the acceptance of, oh, we can actually do this, and we keep on growing. Now you're an established writer, you're a coach, you're everything. You're a speaker, you're a presenter, you're a runner, all these kind of things. But literally every one of those, you must have had those doubts at the beginning when you thought, nah, I can't do this, so I'm not even going to bother.
Yeah, it was definitely that imposter syndrome. I felt like an imposter runner, an imposter writer, imposter this and that. When the reality is, I was doing those things. I was writing, I was running, I was speaking. I didn't have to feel like an imposter because I was actually doing those things. And really, that's what it takes. If you want to be a writer, guess what? Get out a pen, get out your computer, and start writing. That's what makes a writer. A writer is somebody who writes. It's not somebody who is published or writing for this place or that place. A writer is somebody who writes. A runner is somebody who gets out there and runs. They get out there, they hit the ground, they move their feet forward, and they run. You don't have to be an Olympic athlete or run a marathon or anything crazy like that. All you got to do is just get out there and run. And so realize if you're doing it, you're not an imposter.
I was talking to a chap the other day, and he said that he decided he was going to be a life coach. And somebody said to him, well, you need to go to university or get some kind of qualification. He said, no, rubbish, I'm just going to say I'm a life coach. And they said, well, you can't do that. And he said, you tell me why I can't do that. Why do I have to sign up to get accredited by an organisation who have just decided that they are going to do the accreditation? Why? Why all my life skills, all my experience, why can't I just say that I'm a life coach? Rubbish, I'm just going to do it. And he did. And he keeps on doing this. He keeps on saying, right, I'm going to do this. And he says, as long as you've got the experience to back it up and you can actually provide value to people and you are willing to give it your best shot, you don't have to wait for like the accreditation of being told you're a runner or the accreditation of being told you're a writer. You just need to do it. And if you do it with as much confidence as you can, people will buy into that anyway. Hell, people might actually say I'm a podcaster, Kimanzi. Who knows? I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just turning the mic on and having a conversation. But people might think that.
I totally agree. And really the experience is what teaches you how to become that thing. You can go to school and you can learn about it, sure. But once you get out there in the real world and you start getting experience, that's what's going to shape what you're doing and how you do it. It's really that experience that guides us. And what's crazy today, David, is kids are getting in so much student loan debt. You're this massive debt that you have like really no chance of paying off, because once you get out of school, you're not guaranteed a job anymore with our economy. And it's this massive debt with no hopes of paying it off, and then you end up getting a job that's not even in the field related to your career. And we see that happen a lot, when the reality is you can probably get the same education for 1/10 of the price, go out there, build that experience, and do what you want to do in life. Or you could just say, like your friend said, you can just say, I'm just going to go out there and do it. I'm going to practice, I'm going to gain that experience and get better.
I suppose what we're saying to all the listeners out there is you don't need to have permission. You just need to do it and want to do it.
Totally agree.
I'm going to play a little speech now. This is from a chap who's kind of well known in Hollywood circles. I imagine now that you're a big star, Kimanzi, that you probably share the odd drink with him every now and again. This is Jim Carrey, and these are some words that he said recently, and I think it really emphasizes what we're talking about. Have a listen to this.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
That's the message of this conversation, isn't it?
That's powerful. Wow.
Have you heard that before?
I've never heard that before.
Because it's been going sort of viral. It's all over the internet, and I think it's absolutely nails it, doesn't it? We're all on this path where we do jobs that are expected of us, or we do jobs just because we think financially they are the best ones for us. But quite often they're not. And we have these dreams, we have these aspirations, we have these wants constantly ticking away. If only I won the lottery, I would do this. If only something occurred, I would do this. And at the end of the day, you suddenly might run out of time. I hope that's never the case, but you might run out of time, and all you're left with is the feeling of what you should have done or could have done.
Yeah, for 12 years, David, as you know, I built a business that it definitely wasn't my passion. Towards the end, I hated it, but it brought in $500,000 in revenue every year. And so it was kind of secure, but I even managed to ruin that. But really, it wasn't something I was passionate about. And then when my father died and we had those talks, it was the wake-up call I needed, that money and all that it's not everything. It's not everything at all in life, and that there's a lot more living to be had.
I remember in our last conversation, and it did make me laugh, but I was too polite to actually laugh in front of you, Kimanzi, but I will bring it up again, where you decided that you was going to be an organizer for your sister's wedding, and you realized quite soon into the game that you were not playing to your strengths, and it was all over the shop. Unfortunately, your sister didn't sort of divorce you, really. I know you can't do that to brothers and sisters, but she could have done, because it went a bit pear-shaped, as we say in the United Kingdom. And that was another example of trying to do something that you just thought was there to do and not what you should be doing.
Yeah, that was a disaster. You're very polite for not laughing. You could laugh now, but it was a complete disaster. I didn't know what I was doing. Everybody knew that I didn't know what I was doing. They asked me all these questions. I had no answers. I got all the wrong stuff, the wrong chairs, the wrong cake, the wrong everything you could imagine. It was all wrong, and I spent way too much money on stuff. So it was a disaster.
So when did you realize what you should be? When did Kimanzi Constable? We talk about this and we call it the big dot. And quite often, and I'm not sure actually on episode 7 when we actually asked you this question, or if we did ask you this question, but a lot of the times, Kimanzi, it's when your life is really dire, it's in a dark place, and you look at yourself and you start asking these questions of, who am I? What am I here for? Have you had that big dot in your life that you can go back to and go, yeah, that's when Kimanzi Constable, that's on the mic now, actually was born?
Yeah, definitely. I had slaved away at this business. If you haven't heard the episode, I had slaved away at this business for 12 years. It was good, but I had built up over $180,000 in debt to the IRS. And here in the United States, the IRS is not your friend. Unless they're listening to this, then hey guys, how's it
And it was only 20,000. That's what you should say.
Yeah, it was only 20,000. But I had built up all this debt. I was 170 pounds overweight, and me and my wife were separated, and it was the most miserable time in my life. And at that point, I realized, and then my father died, and I realized that life's too short, and I got to do something about this. This is out of control. And so I started putting a plan in place and started making that shift. And in that time period, I was able to lose 165 pounds, as David knows. And I was able to leave that business slowly. But the big dot, the thing that brought me to this point was I had self-published a book. And the book had flopped. It had sold 5 copies in the first 6 months. And the book was supposed to be my quote-unquote big break. That was going to be the thing that made me famous. And nobody bought the book. Nobody cared about the book. And I was ready to give up. But the thing that had stopped me was a 19-year-old guy had emailed me and was reading my blog and said, hey, I'm reading your stuff. You inspired me to quit my job. And I emailed him back and I said, hey man, don't quit your job. And you know what, for legal reasons, I didn't tell you to quit your job because I didn't need to be sued on top of everything else. But I said, let's get on the phone and talk. And we got on the phone and we talked. And it was that situation you talked about with your friend, David. I wasn't a life coach or anything, but I told him that I wanted to coach him and to help him figure out what he wanted to do. And within 1 month, he was able to land his dream job. Like his dream job. And what's crazy was he got his dream job. I wasn't at mine. but I was so happy for him. I was overjoyed. His wife was, they were all crying on the phone. And at that moment, that was the big dot for me. That's when it clicked in my mind. That was the aha moment, whatever you want to call it. That's when somebody slapped me in the face. It was like, this is what you're meant to do. It's not to write, to speak, to vent, plan, to whatever. It's to help people that felt stuck, to help those that felt like they had no other option, and it's to help them get over their fears, to change their mindset, and to chase that thing and to make that thing happen. And that was kind of the big dot and the big wake up call for me.
And deep down, when you got him his dream job and you still weren't in your dream job, because I've had this loads of times in my career. People used to give me their resumes, their CVs to rewrite, and I was always very good at writing CVs, and I could just rewrite it, and 9 times out of 10 they would get their dream job on the basis of it. And I used to look at it and think, why am I still doing this? Why are they moving on here, moving on there? And now I look back on it and I think it's just because I wasn't pushing myself that hard, because it wasn't what I really wanted. So when you had that moment when that guy got his dream job, was there a bit of you that went, come on, Kimanzi, come on, I really need to up my game now. Otherwise, I'm always going to be the person that's the pusher, pushing people to their positions and not actually gaining myself?
Yeah, definitely. I thought this is great, and I did this one time, but how cool would this be to do this for a living? And at that point is when I really got serious about this, and it was within 8 months of that guy getting that job, I was actually able to leave that business that I hated, get out of all that debt, and really start living out my dream.
So how did you do that then? How did you started believing in yourself, believing that you had something to offer to the world, and then going seeking for clients? Or was it naturally because of your blog that the clients came to you, but then you was in a better position mentally to go, yes, I will coach you, it's X amount of dollars each month, take it or leave it?
No, the coaching didn't actually start for years later, because I'm an extreme introvert. So for me to be in those situations, it's a little bit harder. What really did it was I said, you know what, this is a pretty amazing time. Anything I want to know on how to grow this business is online. And so I became a student, and I started researching everything I had to know about growing. First of all, I had a website that was getting 10 people a day, and I knew I needed traffic. So what's the best way to get traffic? What's the quickest way to get traffic? And the first thing that I started doing that really kind of put me on the map and brought people in was I started guest posting on larger websites than mine. And a lot of people that are probably listening to this are like, what? But, guest posting is you just write an article for another website that's larger than yours. They feature it. They give you links back to your website. So when I had nobody coming to my website, nobody knew I was alive, I had one guest post for a guy named Michael Hyatt, who was a CEO of a large publishing company. And that one guest post, it went live in March of 2012. That one guest post, that first day that I went live, it brought me 20,000 visitors to my website and 6,000 email subscribers. So from there, I was able to get 6 more really large websites to feature my articles, and then 40 other smaller sites. So it was more than anything, David, it was tactical, and it was strategy. So once I had went from having 10 people viewing my stuff to having over 500,000 in 2013, those 500,000 people, a portion of those 500,000 people bought my books. And really the first thing that actually made this thing a reality was I was able then to sell, 82,000 copies of my 2 self-published books. And that's what kind of did it. So yeah, I was believing in myself, but more than anything, it was putting a plan in place, and it was the strategy.
And now you're writing for one of the biggest blogs, I suppose, the Huffington Post.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it?
It's more than cool. When I saw that on Facebook, I thought, yeah, go for it, Kimanzi. That is more than cool, isn't it? I don't think it's that big or well known in the United Kingdom. I'll be honest with you. I don't know many people that sort of talk about it, but certainly in the United States, it's one of the biggest.
Yeah, 43 million people a month come to the Huffington Post. So yeah, to write for them has been an honor. There's also been a couple other big writing projects for a site that called the Good Men Project. They get about 2 million people a week, and their tagline is the conversation no one else is having. So I love that because I can get deep and really talk to men about men issues, and I don't have to hold back there. And then the third really big writing assignment, I haven't even made this public yet, David, so you're kind of getting exclusive here.
That's what we do on Join Up Dots.
The third really big writing assignment I got is for Entrepreneur Magazine.
Well done to you, sir. It's really coming together, isn't it? But, you say that the first time you was on that Michael Hyatt site was March 2012, and now we're July 2014. It's not long, is it? It's 2 years. But my God, what's happened to you?
Yeah, once I put the strategy and the plan in place, after the Michael Hyatt and I got the Traffic and Sell books, it was 8 months until this thing could really fully support me. So generally, it doesn't take as long as you think. If you're willing to deal with the failures and the fears and to get back up, it's not going to take as long as you think. And then even to kind of put a bow on it, David, this, writing for the Huffington Post and all these large websites, even Michael Hyatt, I felt like an imposter for so long that I couldn't write for these large websites, so I didn't even bother trying. But when I could get over that and realize that, I'm not an imposter, I am a writer. I love to write. And once I can get over that imposter syndrome and submit those articles, they were accepted.
How did you do that? Because you used the phrase that you are an extreme introvert. And just the fact that you are on the mic now, you're being a public speaker, you're writing for all these blogs, you're really putting yourself out there. And as you say, there's a few haters, Kimanzi Constable haters, and I can't believe that, but I know that happens. Even if you're doing things actually for the right reason, you're going to get people that, have a go at you. Why is that extreme introvert really wanting to put themselves out?
I think it's focusing on really the motivation of why I do all this, and that's to help somebody who was where I was, to help that person that just feels like they have no other options, but they want to do this. So when I go out here and I can do an interview or speak or anything like that, I'm doing it really not for me, I'm doing it for them. So I got to look past how I feel and my weird tendencies. And I got to realize that this is for them. And if this is for them, you kind of got to put yourself out there.
But you don't have weird tendencies. None of us do. We're just being ourselves, aren't we? And that's the thing. Once you accept who you are and the things that other people might think weird, you are really starting to cook on gas.
You're absolutely right. I mean, because public speaking in front of audience, the first time I did it, like, I almost, peed in my pants because I was so scared and nervous and didn't want to do it. But the thing about speaking is I love to travel. So I may not love to get up there. When I get up there, I'm going to give you everything I have. I'm going to give you absolute value to your audience and clear takeaways because I know how it is to listen to fluff, and I don't want to ever do that. I'm tired of fluff. But I do love to travel. So to be able to come to London, with my wife last year in October, and to speak at that conference, so that helps a little bit with the introvertedness. But writing's easy because I can sit here and I can look at where we live. We can see the ocean. I can see the ocean from where I live, and write. That's the easy part. It's just learning how to get over whatever's inside of me that's nervous about, like interviews and large gatherings and stuff like that.
That can't be the easy part, though, can it? If I was sitting now, I've got a recording studio, and at the beginning of the show it says live from the back of his garden in the United Kingdom, and I'm here today, and it's a beautiful sunny day, but I've got every single blind closed shut, so I can just focus on this. And if I was writing, and in front of me was the ocean, I remember Stephen King saying that for years he wanted this writing desk, this amazing writing desk that meant that he was successful. And for years and years and years, he used to write in the kind of triangle bit under the stairs. So where the stairs goes up, and he used to have a little desk, and all he was facing was the bottom of the stairs. And he would write all his masterpieces. And then he became wealthy, and so he decided to buy this writing desk overlooking a lake or something and the woods. And he couldn't get any work done. He couldn't get any work done at all because he was just looking out and daydreaming. So he had to almost recreate his writing space under the desk, under the stairs, so that he would sort of block himself off. So the fact that you are in, paradise, in many ways must be harder to keep on churning it out, because mentally you've kind of achieved, and there's a need to enjoy what you're surrounding yourself by. Can you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, the biggest thing that's probably helped would be going back to the breadman days. So when I was a breadman and I was doing this business where I was working 40 to 60 hours a week, I would have to come home and I was writing my first book. And the skill I really had to learn how to do was kind of tune out the world and just write, because I only had, an hour or two every day to write. And so if I was going to get anything done, I had to learn how to tune out those distractions. And it almost worked too well, because there was times when my wife would come to talk to me while I'm writing and I completely did not hear anything she was saying. I was so focused. I was so glued to the screen.
Every husband needs that skill, Kimanzi.
She actually started hating it. There was several times she's like, I hate your stupid book, because I would never pay attention.
You could be a multi-millionaire if you could sell that across the world. Block out your wives. That's perfect, mate.
I think that kind of helped me with coming here now and all the distractions that are possible. I don't see those. I only see the words on the paper, and I only see what I'm trying to convey when I'm writing. And so it's a skill that was developed over 4 years, but now it's a skill that I kind of can't turn off.
Well, one of the things that I do these quite lengthy introductions at the beginning of the show, which a lot of people have told me, it makes my show different from other people, because a lot of these sort of podcasts, and you've done many podcasts, but when you go on them, and I've done them myself, they will normally say, spend the first 5 minutes telling us about yourself, and you basically recount your story. And I always think, why do I want to do that? I know my story, it should be up to you. And so I started doing these introductions, and they used to take me maybe 2 hours to do them. And then I twigged on something that I used to do at work and I forgot, but I just set an alarm clock. And I set an alarm clock for half hour, and I will get that done in half hour. And generally, it's as good as it was with 2 hours. But I can see the clock ticking down. I think, right, okay, Facebook is flashing. Right, I'm not going to face that. Oh, no emails. No, I'm not doing anything at all. Bang, 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 bang. Boom. Get it done. And you can achieve so much in so little time. So if anyone is out there and they've got this kind of thing in their head where I'd really like to do this, but by the time I get home, I'm so tired or whatever. As Kimanzi's saying, by being strategic and blocking out inconveniences, you can really do a huge amount in a very short time. And once you get that momentum going, it just becomes easier and easier and easier. What do you think, Kimanzi?
I think that's definitely been the key to, because right now, David, I write twice a week from my blog, and I like to, I'm guessing like you, I like to batch a lot of stuff. So when I sit and I write for my blog, I'm writing 8 articles for the month. I'm writing them in one sitting. But then in addition to that, I'm writing every other week for the Huffington Post, every other week for the Good Men Project, for Entrepreneur Magazine, and a few other places. So that's a ton of writing. The thing that I've found that helps me the most and is the biggest thing, because when I first became supported by this, David, I would write for 10 minutes and then I was watching TV, or I would write for 10 minutes and then it was just too much free time. I was so used to just having a little bit of time. It was way too much free time. And I would be calling friends and they're like, what are you calling me for? I'm like, I just want to talk, man. Hey, how's it going? And I got a sweatband on right now. But the thing that has helped me the most is just working in those uninterrupted blocks of time. So I'll say, hey, you're going to have 2 hours, you're going to have 4 hours, whatever it is. I try to make it 1 hour, 2 hours, and then take a little bit of a break and then come back to it. But those uninterrupted blocks of time, it's amazing how much you can accomplish if you just say, this is all I'm going to work on. I'm turning off Facebook. I'm turning off social media. I'm turning off this. And just work. It's amazing what you can accomplish.
Have you heard of Parkinson's law, Kimanzi?
Mm-mm.
Look up Parkinson's law. This is going to be a good article for you to write. And basically, it's the classic scenario. This bloke, I think he was Cyril Parkinson or Cecil Parkinson, realised many, many years ago that whatever task you have got to do, it will expand to the amount of time that you allow it. So a classic example is when you are a kid and you come home from 6 weeks holiday and you've got this assignment that you need to do, it will take every second of that 6 weeks because you need to get it done. But if you only give yourself 2 hours to do it, you will basically get it done in that time. And when I discovered Parkinson's law a few years ago, I realized that a lot of the time on doing a task, I was just procrastinating, or I was just not really there. I wasn't in the zone, as they say. And so you reduce the time that allows you. So if you think, first of all, okay, it's going to take me 3 hours, you go, no, I'm going to do it in an hour and a half. And you set an alarm clock, and then in that hour and a half, you just have to get it done. And you can see the clock ticking down, and you train yourself. And then you kind of go, well, I did it in an hour and a half. I reckon I could do it in an hour next time. Boom, and you do it the same again. And you can reduce tasks all the time. And batching as well. Batching, I can see that it's much easier to write 8 articles, especially in the kind of emotional kind of vibe that you're doing when you're motivated and you've got that juice going through you, than sitting down and thinking, right, I've got one to do today, and you've got one to do 3 days later. I do these recordings, and quite often I will do about 6 or 7 recordings back to back, because once I get into that kind of vibe of doing them, it's so much easier once again to do it like that than doing one on a Monday and then having to work myself up and then one on a Wednesday. So batching and Parkinson's law is absolutely integral to get, huge amounts of work done, even if you think you haven't got the time.
Absolutely, couldn't agree. And just so you know, I'm giving another exclusive. Usually when I'm writing, I'm listening to some Taylor Swift.
Why Taylor Swift?
I'm her biggest fan. I love her music. I love the way she writes music, and she helps me focus.
So you could actually, knowing how you can achieve goals, you could go, right, I want to go out for dinner with Taylor Swift and achieve it.
Yeah, I could do that. If I did actually get the dinner, I think my wife wanted to kill me.
You don't tell her, Kimanzi. You don't tell her.
Yeah, there you go. We have a secret.
I will say this wasn't you. This was just a very good impression of you that I was doing. But I just
hope
think
one of the 16,000 people that's listening to this doesn't tell her.
Oh, by the time you go out, it'll be about 50,000, and then you'll be well screwed. Yeah. It's never going to happen unless Taylor Swift is one of them. If you're listening, Taylor, we'll put the show links at the end. Kimanzi Constable wants to go out for dinner with you. There you go. If she comes to you, then you haven't done anything bad, Kimanzi.
Yeah, I could come out here to Hawaii. You could share some fresh pineapple juice, and I can give her, if she's listening, I can give her a copy of my book.
You'll write some romantic poetry as well.
I'm not going that far.
He hasn't lost the vibe. He can still put pen to paper and woo you, Taylor Swift. This is amazing, really, isn't it? Because I know we're sort of joking around, but Taylor Swift could be listening. You don't know. That's the power of writing in a blog or being a podcast or anything. It really is global. And with that, I suppose, power comes great responsibility. You've got to be very aware of what you're putting out there, don't you?
Well, it's amazing the time that we live in. It's absolutely amazing. Yes, we were joking. In case my wife's listening to this, we were just joking, which she knows we were. But, the other day, David, last week, before I started writing for the Huffington Post, I actually spoke with Ariana Huffington, New York Times bestselling author, billionaire, just, a big celebrity. I actually, had the chance to speak with her, which is insane. So you're right. We do live in a pretty amazing time, and we're all connected, and nothing's impossible anymore.
But does it faze you? Because I've been surprised doing this job that the guests are successful and they're far beyond where I am. But actually, when I talk to them, they're no different at all. But in your head, you kind of think, right, Kimanzi Constable's coming on today. I really need to raise my game. But when you actually have a conversation, no different.
Exactly. Yeah, they're people just like we're people.
Who would, other than Taylor Swift, who would faze you? Who would get you tongue-tied?
That's a really good question. Other than Taylor Swift, probably Mark Cuban. He seems like an interesting guy, and he's kind of a crazy wild guy, but he's a great businessman, so I'd love to talk to him. I've actually spoken with Chris Gillaboo, but he's one of my heroes. Other than that, the only other person, and he's not alive, would definitely be Steve Jobs. I really would have loved to have a conversation with him.
Well, I can bring him on the show now. You didn't know that I had that power, but I'm going to bring Steve Jobs on and just hear him say a few words, and then this is going to be like you having a one-to-one conversation. This is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever, because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
So when we spoke on episode 7, I played that and I asked you whether you can connect the dots in your life. But in shorter bursts, say the last 4 months with you planning to come to Hawaii, are those dots just goals? Can you project forward to make them happen, where on longer spaces it's actually absolute true what he says? It stumbles and falls, successes and peaks and troughs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it absolutely is true. And what's crazy is once you start connecting those dots or goals or whatever you want to call them, it's amazing how many of the other dots connect. So moving to Hawaii, continuing the weight loss journey, losing that last bit of weight, getting to that 170-pound weight loss mark, the big opportunities that are all around. Once you start connecting a few of those dots, there's a lot more dots that are going to be connected.
Because that must have been hard to shift that weight, because you were a big fella, weren't you? When I first spoke to you,
big fella.
Yeah, you was quite hefty, to say the least, and the ability to even run at that stage, it must have been a killer.
Absolute killer, and you just got to start slow. I couldn't run 10 miles a day. Then I was happy if I ran half a mile.
Yeah, but I'm a skinny chap, basically. I couldn't run half a mile now. I don't, and I don't think I'd want to run half a mile. That's what buses are there for. They get you there anyway, But it's one of the things that's coming out on these shows all the time, and I'm going to ask you this because I haven't really asked anyone before, but it seems to me the entrepreneurial way of life is about designing a future that is very much yours. And it also seems to tie up with following the sunshine and also making yourself fitter. And it seems that so many entrepreneurs or really successful people also do marathons or ultra marathons or Ironman competitions, because they achieve so much in their personal life, they then bring it back on themselves, and then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're fitter, they're more able to sort of focus and get their energies and their juices up. And it seems to me you're doing exactly the same. You've got yourself super fit compared to where you were. I'm sure there's certain areas that you want to go, because you now do 10 miles, I bet it's 20 miles, and then I might as well do a marathon and all that kind of stuff. But you're also following the sunshine as well. Did you find that more and more successful people that you speak to seem to live in the Floridas, the Californias, the Hawaiis, and all those kind of places? You don't get many that say, oh yeah, I'm living in Alaska.
Or Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you want to kind of put yourself in that environment where you can do stuff like that. Like, Hawaii, I'm going to be able to run all year round. And I think it's a kind of a combination of things. I like to use that time to think and to plan and to strategize. But more than anything, like you said, the energy factor, you have the energy for all day. And then it's the appearance thing. So I was going out to speak at events all over the world, and a lot of people said, yeah, his content is great, but he's a really big guy, and it's kind of distracting. And if I'm sitting here giving these motivational talks and trying to motivate people, it's not very motivating if I haven't motivated myself enough to lose all this weight and to walk around, at 370 pounds. So, there was that factor. And then really the other part of that equation is pushing yourself beyond what you think is your limit, because there's always more to give, and your body can really, and I'm not suggesting anybody go out there and injure themselves trying this, but your body definitely has more in you than you think it does. So when you think you could only run 10 miles, this past weekend, I never thought this was possible, but this past Saturday I ran 18 miles straight without walking. I never thought I could do that, but I pushed my body beyond what I thought. So it's that factor of I just want to push it and be the best me that I can be.
I think we love you, Kimanzi Constable. You are exactly what this show is all about. You know, if you've got a theme tune, and I play this every now and again because it fits perfectly, it would be this, wouldn't it? That would be 2 o'clock in the morning. You're getting up out of bed. You're opening the fridge. You're knocking back 4 or 5 raw eggs, and off you go running. You are Rocky, aren't you?
If I ate 4 or 5 raw eggs or anything for that matter, I would need to find some bushes on the path to take care of business.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough on that conversation. So just before we put you on the sermon on the mic and we send you back in time for the second time, you're the first guest who's ever done this time travel twice. Woohoo! What is your plans for the next couple of months and few years? Because remember the last time you was talking about developing a conference in Hawaii. A sort of a seminar. Is that still going?
Oh man, I'm so glad you asked that, David. Because yeah, it actually. What's crazy? It's happening, David. It's called the Work Hard, Play Hard Summit. So you can go to workhardplayhardsummit.com, and it is happening here in Maui on December 5th through the 7th. I'm doing it with my buddies Gene Hammett from Leaders in the Trenches. I don't know if you've interviewed him yet. If you haven't, let me make the introduction. David, have you interviewed Gene?
No, I haven't. I haven't heard his name,
perfect.
to be honest.
And then my friend Jared Easley, who has a podcast called Starve the Doubts, and he happens to also be the founder of Podcast Movement, which is the world's first conference for podcasters by podcasters. Have you heard of that conference?
I have. It's August the 16th and 17th, I think, in Dallas.
That's right. And Jared is one of the founders of that conference. So all three of us are throwing this conference in Maui. It's called the Work Hard, Play Hard Summit, where it's not a conference per se where you're going to come and you're going to have sessions. It's going to be more of a mastermind and a hot seat format where all 20 entrepreneurs are going to come together. We're all going to be in this group, and we're going to talk about each person's business. They're going to get up, they're going to be on the hot seat, and they're going to get feedback from everybody, and then some private sessions with some of the experts that we have brought in. But this conference is here in Maui. We rented out, get this, David, we rented out a mansion that's on the water, and we hired a private chef that's going to be making all the meals.
You've become like Hugh Hefner, haven't you?
If you could see, I'm going to send David, you're going to go to Work Hard, Play Hard Summit and see it, but I'm going to send David pictures. The mansion is sick. It's going to be like one of those MTV houses for the Railroad Show. But
you're going to have Taylor Swift serving the drinks.
Oh, man. But then the play hard part of this is, in addition to all this good work stuff, we're going to be going to the top of Mount Haleakala, which is a 10,000-foot dormant volcano. We're going to see the sunrise up there. Then we're going to bike down the mountain. It's going to be a 28-mile bike down the mountain. And when you get to the bottom of the mountain, you're at the beach and you're at the ocean. We're going to be going zip lining. We're going to do an original Hawaiian luau. And so we're going to work hard and we're going to play harder.
Gerard Easley, he hasn't been on the show, but I have interviewed his co-founder, Dan Franks, who's doing the podcast Movement. And he is somebody that I also find fascinating for so many reasons, because he's just taking almost uncomfortable action. Everything he's doing at the moment is coming off, which is marvellous to see, but it's not stuff he's done before, it seems. And how did you connect with him? Because virtually, and this is one of the sort of messages once again to the show, if you have got an idea out there that you want to do and you reach out to people, generally across the globe, you don't even have to meet them. They will help you and you can pull together. I spoke to a woman last night who's had an assistant working for her for 2 years, and she's never once met her, not even had a Skype call or anything, and it's her personal assistant. So you have got this ability to connect across the globe, which is hugely powerful. And you seem to be doing this amazingly well. So how are you connecting with these people to then form through Work Hard, Play Hard and all that kind of stuff?
We just met, as you said, in the virtual world, just having, I guess, mutual friends. And then I'm kind of, I've done a few interviews and a few articles all over the place. So Jared just reached out one day and said, hey, and I said, hey, right back. And it kind of formed from there to a real friendship where we actually talk on the phone every week. We actually catch up, and it's great. So it started online. It's formed into a real friendship, and he's he's another guy that I'm going to connect you with, because he's just a great guy. He's doing amazing things in this podcast movement thing. I mean, if you're a podcaster, it's going to be a pretty big deal. But it's amazing how the internet connects all of us. It really is.
Especially people with a similar theme or a mentality. You know,
Absolutely.
I suppose if you want to be a positive, inspirational guy, then you can connect with Kimanzi Constable. And if you want to be a serial killer, you could probably find like-minded serial killers as well, can't you?
I'm sure you could. I'm sure there's a group for it somewhere.
There's a group for everything, isn't there? You go on Facebook and you'll find, you don't want to go there. Stay on the positive side.
I'm afraid.
We saw what happened with Darth Vader. It didn't end up good, did it?
No, it didn't. But yeah, I'm going to connect you with Jared and Jen, because those are two guys you definitely need to have up here and join up the dots.
Well, you are a big friend of mine as well. And just before we say goodbye to you, I'm just fascinated to see what you're going to say on the Sermon on the Mic, because I know this time we're not going to send you back massively. We're going to send you back about 4 or 5 months before you actually moved over to Hawaii. So I'm going to play this theme tune, and when it fades out, you're up. And Kimanzi Constable, this is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
So here we are, Kimanzi. First of all, I just want to tell you that's kind of a weird name. But the one thing I would tell you is this. Yes, Hawaii's expensive, and yes, you're moving far away from family, and yes, these are really big life changes in your life. That's all happening. There's no need to be afraid. The worst thing that could happen is you could fall down, but guess what? You can get back up. You can get going. You're going to do amazing things. There's nothing for you to fear. And really, you've let fear dictate what you've done for too long. You've let doubts and the negative voices of other people hold you back for too long. It's time to stop being afraid of making these big changes. You've already made some big changes. So stop being afraid. Realize that you've done it and you can do anything. Nothing is impossible to you. So stop letting that fear win and just do it. You have a solid plan in place. You've done your research. You prepared. You got a large emergency fund, just in case things don't go as planned. Stop being afraid. Stop letting fear win. And once you do get there, once you get to Hawaii and get there with all the other big changes you want to make in your life, start dreaming even bigger. Start going after crazier goals. Start doing the things that everybody absolutely screams in your ear is impossible. Those are the kind of things you want to shoot for in your life. You know, as Steve Jobs said, the ones that think they're crazy enough to change the world, those are the ones that do. And that's the kind of person that you need to be. You need to be one of those crazy ones who thinks that they can change the world. And if you are, you will change the world. So dream bigger, dream higher, do the impossible, and don't look back. Look forward. You're not guaranteed a tomorrow. So you have to live for today. Live today as if it was your last day on earth. What would you do if today was your last day on earth? Live today that way, and don't look back, and don't die with regret in your heart. And that's what I have to tell you, Kimanzi.
I think if it was my last day on earth, I would meet up with Taylor Swift and then email you some pictures to show you. That's what, and you would think, I should have got there first.
I would be, I'd be a little jealous, but I'd be happy for you.
Well, probably happier than my wife would be anyway. Kimanzi, how can people connect with you?
You could head over to KimanziConstable.com, which is KimanziConstable. You could Google Kimanzi Constable, or you could head to livingorexistingbook.com, and that will take you to KimanziConstable.com. But stop over there, say hey, say David sent you.
And do we have a link to Work Hard, Play Hard yet?
Yeah, workhardplayhardsummit.com.
I will put that on there as well, and I know that that's going to be an amazing success for you, sir. Thank you so much for spending time with us again, joining up those dots. And I'm going to say this because I need to say this. Please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I reckon you're going to be a theme on this show. You're going to come on 2 or 3 times, maybe 5 or 6, and the stories are just going to get better and better. How inspiring is that going to be? Because I do believe that by joining up the dots and connecting our pasts is the best way to build our futures. Kimanzi, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, David. It's always a pleasure.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.